Uncommon Men podcast. Today I want to talk about 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and it addresses the issue of idolatry and warns against falling into the same sins as the Israelites in the wilderness. So, in this chapter, Paul uses the example of the Israelites in the wilderness to caution the Corinthians against idolatry and immorality. He highlights the importance of learning from the mistakes of the past and warns against testing the Lord or giving in to temptation. Paul encourages the Corinthians to flee from idolatry and to partake in the Lord's Supper with reverence and unity. Regarding the warning against idolatry, Paul reminds the Corinthians of the Israelites' experience in the wilderness, where many of them fell into idolatry and were punished by God. He emphasizes that idolatry is incompatible with true worship of God and warns the Corinthians against following in the same footsteps. Regarding the examples from Israelites' history, Paul recounts various events from the Israelites' history, such as their deliverance from Egypt, their crossing of the Red Sea, and their provision of manna and water. He explains that these examples serve as a warning for the Corinthians, showing the consequences of disobedience, grumbling, and idolatry. Regarding the warning against testing the Lord, Paul cautions the Corinthians against testing the Lord, just as the Israelites did in the wilderness when they complained and rebelled against God. He encourages them to flee from the temptation to engage in idolatrous practices or to put God to the test. Regarding fleeing from idolatry, Paul urges the Corinthians to flee from idolatry and to have no participation in the worship of false gods. He emphasizes that believers cannot partake in the Lord's table and also participate in the table of demons. True worship should be directed solely towards the Lord. Regarding the Lord's Supper, Paul provides instructions for the proper observances of the Lord's Supper. He emphasizes the importance of partaking in unity and with reverence. Recognizing the significance of the bread and the cup as symbols of Christ's body and blood, Paul warns against treating the Lord's Supper as a mere meal or engaging in it in an unworthy manner. Also, to glorify God in all things, Paul concludes by encouraging the Corinthians to do all things for the glory of God. Whether eating or drinking, they should seek to honor God and consider the well-being of others. He urges them to imitate him as he imitates Christ and to avoid causing others to stumble in their faith. So to summarize, 1 Corinthians chapter 10 serves as a warning against idolatry and immorality, using the Israelites' history as an example. Paul emphasizes the importance of learning from past mistakes and cautions the Corinthians against testing the Lord or giving in to temptation. He encourages them to flee from idolatry and to partake in the Lord's Supper with reverence and unity, always seeking to glorify God in all things. So I hope that gives you some insight into the chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, and hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you again soon.